Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mr. Armstrong. The next number we're going to swing for you is one of the good old favorites. That's Dinah, Dinah. Look out there, boy. Are you ready? Look out. 1, 2, 3. Is anyone finer in the state of Carolina? If there is, and you know, show to me. Dinah, the Dixie eyes blazing, we love the city gazing to the eyes of Dinah Lee. Baby, every night, one eye, shake with flight, oh, cause my dynamite, change your mind, Baba didn't you want to China, baby, I'd have an original, oh, baby. Oh, Dinah, Dinah. Oh, Dinah, oh, baby, Dinah, 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 oh, baby, every night, oh, that's my dynamite, so that if you want to do that, baby, I'd have an ocean liner, yeah.
Hello, I'm Regina Bain, Executive Director of the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Welcome to Gala 2021. You just saw Dinah, one of the earliest known recordings of Louis on stage in Copenhagen, 1933. A fitting opening, as tonight we're celebrating Ambassador Satch. Louis Armstrong was a music and cultural icon who toured in over 60 countries, creating a global legacy that is still felt today. Tonight is only possible because of you, our generous supporters. Thank you. Thank you to two key partners, the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation and Queens College. Thank you for the tremendous long-term commitment of our elected officials in the Office of the Governor, the Mayor, State Senate and Assembly, Borough Hall, and City Council. Our representatives in Washington, D.C., the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts. Thank you to the Fund2 Foundation, whose support makes our digital archives and museum fellowship program a reality. We are especially thankful to those who have made major contributions to tonight's gala, including Robert Smith, Jerry Chasen, and Stephen Maitland-Lewis. And thank you to everyone who is watching tonight. If you wish to join in supporting our work, you can find the donation information right below this video. You can also text to give by following the instructions on your screen. The Louis Armstrong House Museum preserves the legacy of Louis and Lucille Armstrong by providing tours of their historic home, through a 60,000-piece archive, the largest of any jazz musician, and one of the largest of any Black musician, and through performances and programming that educate and inspire. Now, we invite you to come with us as we step on the plane to traverse waters and mountains, cultures and languages through the unifying truth of music. Tonight, we'll hear about the impact Louis Armstrong had around the world and how the impact still reverberates today, 50 years after he passed in 1971. This year, the Louis Armstrong House Museum inaugurated its Global Ambassadors program. Musicians, historians, and young people traveling the world, virtually for now, in a cultural exchange. Our first effort is the Real Ambassadors in Concert, in partnership with the Forum for Cultural Engagement, the U.S. Embassy of Russia, and the Brubeck family. Acclaimed jazz musician Dave Brubeck and his wife and lyricist Iola Brubeck penned the Broadway play The Real Ambassadors in the late 50s. Modeled after Armstrong's story of global travel and influence in the midst of turbulent times, the play was never produced, but the album they recorded with songs from the play became legendary. Through the Global Ambassadors program, we were able to gather a group of contemporary musicians in the Brubeck home and in the clubs of New York to commemorate this monumental recording, honoring the legacy and interpreting these songs for a new era. We are pleased to share one of these performances with you tonight. Here are the Real Ambassadors.
From reports on Dizzy Gillespie, it was clear to the local press. While the riots of our Greece restored the place to comparative peace. That's what we call cultural exchange. 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 When this Bluth arrives, we're routed. The people dance and they cheered and shouted. The headline banners, the hours his. They dropped their stones and they brought the tears. That's what we call cultural exchange. That's what we call cultural exchange. That's what we call cultural exchange. That's what we call cultural exchange.
Tonight, you'll experience Louis Armstrong as a global star and humanitarian. And you'll see how we are ensuring the strength of his legacy for the next 50 years. To start us off on our journey, here's Ricky Riccardi.
Tonight we're going to follow the journey of Louis Armstrong around the world, a journey that for us begins in Chicago. By November 1925, Armstrong was a veteran of hundreds of recording dates, but always as a sideman. That changed on November 12, 1925, when OK Records had Armstrong lead a band for the first time in the studio, the Hot Five. By September of 1926, those records had become wildly popular. OK Records put Louis on the cover of its Italian supplement catalog and sent him a letter saying that anytime he wanted to come to Italy, Europe was ready to receive him with open arms. By 1931, Louis Armstrong is the biggest selling artist in the entire recording industry. But because of faulty management, Armstrong ran afoul of the mob. After being threatened by a gangster at gunpoint in his dressing room in Chicago, Louis and his manager, Johnny Collins, realized that the United States was no longer a friendly place for the trumpeter. Armstrong knew he could no longer play in the United States with peace of mind. So in July 1932, he set sail for England, where he would spend the next 4 months. Armstrong opened at the Palladium and was immediately a sensation with musicians all over the country. Armstrong returned to America, recorded for RCA Victor, toured the States, but the pull of Europe was so strong that in July 1933, 1 year later, Armstrong was back in England, and this time he was there to stay. After conquering England, Armstrong went to the Scandinavian countries in October of 1933. It was in Denmark where Louis Armstrong was filmed performing Dinah, the explosive performance that kicked off tonight's show. Also in Denmark, Armstrong was captured singing beautifully on I Cover the Waterfront and illustrating his instrumental prowess on Tiger Rag. The trumpet playing at the end of Tiger Rag, the high notes, the rhythm, everything that made Louis Armstrong such an innovative musician are all there captured on film for the world to see. After the Scandinavian leg of his tour, Armstrong moved back to England until the summer of 1934 when he went to Paris for the first time. Louis and Paris immediately fell in love with each other. He befriended members of the Hot Club de France, and he actually lived in Paris for 6 months, meeting musicians, hanging out after hours, and just enjoying the good life. Armstrong would not forget that connection to Paris anytime soon. But after a series of stops in Italy and Switzerland in early 1935, Armstrong headed back to the United States, not to return to Europe until the late 40s. By that time, it was becoming harder and harder to lead a big band. Armstrong's main source of income was playing military bases, traveling around the country. There was incredible appeal for Armstrong to come overseas, but the time was not right during World War II. After the war, the big band era kind of came to an end. Armstrong broke up his big band and formed a small group, the All-Stars. And it is with the All-Stars in 1948 that Armstrong returned overseas, and of course his first stop was France, the very first jazz festival of all time, the Nice Jazz Festival. And it was in Nice that Armstrong was introduced to a song that would become a permanent part of his repertoire, C'est si bon.
Oh, c'est si bon, lovers say in rain, as they swing to romance, because it's oh so good. Yes, it's si bon, I'll say it to you, like the French people do. Baby, it's so good.
In 1949, Armstrong embarked on a tour of the entire continent. He hadn't been there in 15 years. When he had first played Italy in 1934, there was not much of a jazz scene, but he was knocked out when he returned to Rome in 1949 and was greeted by the Roman New Orleans Jazz Band. Here is an excerpt from one of Louis's tapes of him talking about that moment.
Especially Rome. I had a wonderful evening there with those bands. I played with the New Orleans Roman Jazz Band. That's one of my favorites. And all the rest of the boys. And they all gave me an album where they all played on one album. And they made me present of it. And we all played in the States. And at the end of it, we went up in that high register and knocked them cats out when they hit that high.
Are the Roman cats like the North American cats?
Oh, yeah. There's cats all over the world.
Is that right?
That's why it's good. They come there, they know what they expect and what they live for,
Here was a group of young Italians who had never been to the United States, had never been to New Orleans before, but they played the music of Armstrong and his mentors, King Oliver and Kid Ory, and that whole generation. They played it so authentically that Armstrong said he could have taken that band around the world. In 1952, Armstrong performed in Berlin, Germany for the first time. Not only was he embraced by the hot club of Berlin and the rabid German fans, but Armstrong was immensely touched by a group of Russian fans who managed to sneak into Germany and catch his performance. In April 1947, Jackie Robinson famously integrated Major League Baseball. 1 month later, Armstrong broke up his big band and formed the All-Stars, and from the moment of their inception, he insisted they always be an integrated band. Armstrong knew audiences were coming to see him, but he always toured with a band of truly all-stars, and he always managed to feature each one of them every night. He would actually tell them, go out there and tear down the house. And so he would make sure that when audiences left, even overseas, they would know who the musicians were, what they played, and why they were so great. And here's an example of Armstrong with his longtime trombonist, Trummy Young, doing Now You Has Jazz in Germany.
If you sail,
Sailing, sailing,
across the sea,
will you wait for me?
take my tip, they're on Motorhip in Italy.
Oh, well, Arrivederci, as for France.
Oh, they dig you there.
Yeah, believe it or
I
not,
believe you, yes indeed.
the Frenchmen all prefer what they call les jazz hot boys.
I will you take the plane,
Oh, Papa knows it.
goes I am. In Bangkok today, round the clock, they love the jam. The Indians are the Amazon. They beat one bar, and all of them are
Welcome, welcome.
way down out to the floor. Everybody's swinging, everybody's singing. Drop, 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 drop. Round the east, to the west, out to the coast.
Jazz is king, jazz is king, that folks dig. I Now that's jazz.
When Armstrong toured overseas, this was more than just a typical jazz trumpet player going from spot to spot. This was an icon, and fans responded. Armstrong's hotels would be mobbed by fans just looking for a glimpse, looking for an autograph. In Germany, riots broke out in between two of Armstrong's shows when the first audience wouldn't leave for the second audience. And when Armstrong went to Argentina, a mob chased him down the street. Armstrong's repertoire was also influenced by his worldwide travels. After touring France, he added C'est Bon and La Vie en Rose to his repertoire. After touring Germany, he added Faithful Hussar to his nightly sets. And in Argentina, gave him Adios Muchachos, an old tango that became better known as I Get Ideas.
When we were dancing and you dangerously near me, I get ideas. I get ideas. I want to hold you so much closer than I dare to. I want to scold you, but I care more than I care to. And when you touch me with the fire in every finger, I get ideas. Yes, I do. And after we'd said goodnight, and then you linger, I kinda think you get ideas. Your eyes are always saying that things you never saying. I hope they will be saying that you could love me too, for that's the whole idea. You lovely idea that I'm falling in love
with you. And after we'd said goodnight, and then you linger, babe, I kind of think you get ideas. Yes. Adios, muchacha.
Louis Armstrong became a megastar, touring the world and winning over fans in every country where his music was heard. Then, in the 1950s, an evolution begins. The context: internationally, a Cold War with the Soviet Union. Domestically, the civil rights movement confronting racism. Indeed, at the urging of Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr., the first African American to be elected to Congress from New York State, the U.S. began leveraging the international popularity of celebrities, particularly jazz musicians, for a type of soft diplomacy, sharing an American way of life with the world. Louis Armstrong does not participate. He travels the world, but on his own terms. Armstrong does not participate in a state-sponsored tour until 1960, when he undertook a 27-city tour of the continent of Africa, including Ghana, Kenya, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Uganda, Senegal, Mali, Liberia, Sudan, Congo, Egypt, Sierra Leone, and more. The story of Ambassador Satch is one of the major topics of our upcoming Here to Stay exhibition. The exhibition will present rare artifacts, memorabilia, music, and scenes from Armstrong's life on and off stage. We are excited to share with you a sneak peek of a video from the exhibition. Here is an excerpt from Ambassador. In 1955, a New York Times headline read, "United States has a secret sonic weapon, jazz." The article went on to say, America's best Cold War weapon is a blue note in a minor key, and Louis Armstrong is its most effective ambassador. When Armstrong sits for his first passport photo in 1932, he has yet to grasp the weight of what a passport can do. Jazz musicians have always symbolized freedom. The freedoms they express in music empowers the musicians and their listeners. Each musician is often given a solo, a space in the song to share their story. Jazz became a major export of the USA because it exemplifies an optimism against all odds. Therefore, each jazz musician that tours the world becomes a beacon for freedom. Armstrong frequently traveled with his wife, Lucille, and she often bought travel books about the cities they would explore. In Japan, they wear traditional kimonos. In the Congo, he joins other trumpeters in a song. Armstrong is always meeting new audiences at eye level. By the mid-1950s, the Harlem-born pastor and congressman Adam Clayton Powell knew intimately well that jazz was a powerful diplomatic device. Powell grew up hearing jazz in Harlem and eventually married the piano prodigy and activist Hazel Scott. Powell and State Department teamed up with bebop trumpet sensation Dizzy Gillespie to inaugurate the Jazz Ambassadors. Columbia Records, the label Armstrong recorded for, senses this new development and compiled a set of live recordings from concerts in Amsterdam and Milan. The album became Ambassador Satch. Right afterwards, the CBS television producer Edward R. Murrow organizes Armstrong's first tour of Africa. Murrow films the tour, which becomes the documentary Satchmo the Great. The U.S. government was paying attention to Lewis's moves internationally and at home. They opened an FBI file on Armstrong in 1948 and kept tabs on Armstrong's affiliations with the NAACP and other political platforms. By 1956, civil rights protests were brewing across America, in particular with the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. In May of the same year, Armstrong visited the city of Accra. Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah led the country's emancipation out of 136 years of British colonial rule. Nkrumah believed the sounds of jazz would mark the Pan-African Revolution. The Gold Coast becomes Ghana. Armstrong and the All-Stars performed for a staggering 100,000 people in a football stadium.
Armstrong led an integrated band, which caused some promoters to cancel his concerts. New Orleans outlawed integrated bands in the summer of 1956. Armstrong vowed never to play in his hometown until the law was removed. Later the same year, Armstrong decided he was dropping plans for a government-backed trip to Russia. He was irate at the way they are treating my people in the South. The government can go to hell.
Because they've been ignoring the Constitution, although they taught it in school, but when they go home, their parents tell them different. Say you don't have to abide by it because we've been getting away with it 100 years. So nobody tells on each other, so don't bother with it. So if they ask me what's happening, if I go, no, I can't tell a lie, that's one thing. You know, what's lying the way I feel about it.
This past year, our online exhibit, That's My Home, received close to 125,000 views, 25,000 in the past month alone. We produced 24 virtual tours and special shows with over 100,000 total views. We've invited over 50 world-class artists to come play and create with us. We provided educational programming and materials to over 5,000 students in 6 school districts. We made major restorations to the historic home. And this summer, for the first time since the onset of the COVID pandemic, we reopened our doors to offer in-person tours. With the grand opening of the Louis Armstrong Center, we will continue to preserve and share the legacy of Louis and Lucille Armstrong and live the Armstrong values of artistic excellence, education, and community. Here's more about what we've been up to and what's in store. Pops is Tops. Our longest running program is a jazz concert for the young and not so young, with experienced musicians playing and discussing jazz and the life of Louis Armstrong. Voices of Freedom, an education series that explores the role of art as a vehicle for social change through the lens of Louis Armstrong. We invite students in high school and beyond to create new works while learning about the process and techniques of world-class artists. Armstrong Now, contemporary artists creating new works inspired by Armstrong's home and archives. Armstrong Now features world-renowned Black artists responding creatively to the newly digitized Armstrong archives. The result? New performances, a suite of short films, and artist talkbacks to discuss the issues and artist process presented in those films. And Louis en Casa, a tour in Spanish with Latin Grammy Award winner Linda Briceño.
las hojas caen y el rojo de una rosa al florecer, para ti y para mí, y me tengo que decir qué hermoso es vivir. Veo el cielo azul en su esplendor, las estrellas bailan alrededor, y me tengo que decir qué hermoso es vivir. Los colores del arco iris, tan hermosos en el cielo, son también las caras llenando el mundo entero. Mis amigos se saludan y sin palabras se dejan saber cuánto se aman. Los bebés llorarán y crecerán, aprenderán muchas cosas más, y me tengo que decir qué hermoso es vivir. Y me tengo que decir qué hermoso es vivir. What a wonderful world.
Armstrong's popularity showed no signs of slowing down in the 1960s. His 1964 hit Hello Dolly knocked the Beatles off the top of the charts. Once more, Armstrong embarked on a series of worldwide tours, conquering Australia, New Zealand, India, Japan, and for the first time, the Iron Curtain, with history-making performances in Prague and East Berlin. As late as 1968, Armstrong was topping worldwide charts with What a Wonderful World, a song that has now become his most iconic number. At the time, it was not a big hit here in the United States, but overseas it was #1 in England, Ireland, South Africa, and many other places around the world, causing Armstrong to go on one more big overseas tour in the summer of 1968. Armstrong's passing on July 6, 1971 was headline news around the world. Lucille Armstrong received close to 40,000 condolence letters. This included letters from heads of state, from the State Department, from musicians, to people who just shook Armstrong's hand and were so touched by that moment they felt the need to write to Lucille. Hot clubs from around the world responded. Multiple soldiers wrote from the Vietnam War. It only made sense that the ambassador of goodwill would also receive condolence letters from State Department heads, from the ambassador to Yugoslavia, from the Minister for Social Affairs of Singapore, from the Consulate General in Durban, South Africa, reporting a 2.5-hour tribute to Lewis that took place 2 weeks after his death. A fan in Prague wrote to relate that he never forgot my shake hand with Satchmo, February 13, 1965, in Prague Hotel International. He concluded, Satchmo will always live in our human and musical memories. To commemorate the 50th anniversary of Armstrong's passing, we have published a 15-part series of posts on our That's My Home virtual exhibit, taking readers through the final weeks of Armstrong's life. You will see the tapes he made, the collages he created, the interviews he gave, plus footage from Armstrong's funeral, and samples of the condolences that Lucille received after his passing.
If you want to add your name and generosity in supporting our work, you can find donation information right below this video. You can text to give, or you can reach out to us by mail using the information below. And of course, you can help by spreading the word about the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Come visit us and tell your friends to check us out too. To those who have already contributed, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to our board, including our illustrious chair, Jerry Chasen, for all you do to keep us moving forward. Thank you as well to our staff, our docents, and our community. Speaking of community, we have one more classic Louis Armstrong performance to share with you tonight. It is Louis's rendition of the classic La Vie en Rose. We invited members of our global community to dance along as Louis sings and plays an anthem of hope, beauty, and joy. As you watch, you may want to dance a little too.
Close and hold me fast, the magic spell you cast. This is La Vie en Rose. When you kiss me, heaven sighs, and though I close my eyes and see La Vie en Rose, when you press me to your heart, I'm in a world apart, a world where roses bloom. And when you speak, angels sing from above. Everyday word seems to turn into love song. Give your heart and soul to me, and life will always be La Vie en Rose.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Chasen, board chair of the Louis Armstrong House Museum. I hope you enjoyed this exciting program. Tonight's journey across the world with Louis Armstrong showcased just a small part of our collection. The archives are by far the largest and most comprehensive body of work about a single jazz musician. For this, we have to thank Louis himself and collectors all over the world who have sent us all kinds of memorabilia. Just weeks ago, we received photos of a Louis Armstrong memorial in a small town in Lithuania. This town was the birthplace of the head of the Karnofsky family, who emigrated to New Orleans and befriended Louis as a young boy. So if any of you have material about Louis, Ricky Riccardi, our Director of Archives, would love to hear from you. Preserving the archives is an important part of our work, but it is just one of the ways that we achieve our mission of perpetuating the legacy of Louis Armstrong. Louis passed away 50 years ago in 1971. To many young people, he might not even be a familiar name. But through our education programs done in conjunction with New York City schools, we are bringing Louis' music to thousands of kids. In our new facility, we will have space to reach even more kids. We also want to make sure that the masters of classic jazz, many of whom are featured on the jazz wall behind me, like Louis, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and so many other legends, will be revered and studied, just as today we continue to honor Beethoven, Brahms, and Mozart. I know that the work we are doing today at the museum is ensuring that centuries from now, people will still be listening to Louis and his fellow trailblazers. I want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to Queens College and CUNY for their long-standing support of the museum. I also want to acknowledge the support of the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation, chaired by my friend Wynton Marsalis. I am especially looking forward to a new CD called The Wonderful World of Louis Armstrong, A Gift to Pops. This is today's music, interpreted by today's musicians, but it's all about Louis Armstrong. This project was planned and executed by the foundation, and in particular by Jackie Harris, who is the director of the foundation and also serves with me on the board of the museum. I want to thank all of my fellow board members for their dedication and the entire staff who keep the museum running every day, under the leadership of Regina Bain, who joined us just barely a year ago and has quickly set the museum on an exciting course. She is a stalwart leader who manages the museum with impeccable judgment and makes our job as board members a pleasure. And I'm thrilled that the museum is open again for visitors, so please come. And thank you again for being here tonight and for supporting the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Since we have been on a worldwide journey, I thought it would be appropriate to see if we had any recordings of Louis thanking his fans in their home languages. Ricky found a show in our archives from 1961 where Louis ended a memorable performance by thanking those present in 3 different languages. So I will let Louis have the last word, and like Louis, I will end by saying, thanks a million.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Yes, as they say in Germany, Dankeschön. As they say in France, merci beaucoup. As they say in America, thanks a million. And good night. thanks, a million thanks to you for everything that love could bring. You brought me each tender love word you happen to say is hidden away in memories bouquet. Now, mama, thanks a million, for I remember too the tenderness that your caresses taught me. You made a million dreams come true, and so I'm saying thanks a million to you.